It's all over the place.
Well, let's get to it very quickly then.
Okay, we should say hi to everybody.
Oh, hi, it's Friday Live.
Yeah.
How's it going, everybody? Hopefully our batteries hold out. I didn't just swap them out from the Guild session. So real quick announcement, the Wood Whisperer Guild, another sale this week on the Morris chair. It's one of my favorites.
It's
I gotta
nice
say.
chair. It's comfy.
Bent lamination, there's a little turning in there, there's just the upholstery.
The upholstery.
A lot of fun. And I lost one of those little pins. I'm kind of pissed about that because...
Mateo keeps playing with it though.
But during the move, when we moved out here, the pin was lost.
Yikes.
I have no idea where it is.
I'm in the YouTube chat.
Oh, Nicole's in the YouTube chat. We can't watch both the YouTube and the Facebook chat, so if you're on Facebook, I try to answer those questions later. But you can go to thewoodwhisperer.com/live, and you can have access to that YouTube chat there. But back to the Morris chair, it's at thewoodwhispererguild.com/Morris-chair. 30% off this weekend only.
Yeah.
Very quickly, I wanted to bring attention to... I did an Instagram story on this yesterday, and I also made it the topic of our weekly newsletter. And it's my thoughts on pickles and finishing. And it's kind of funny. If you can, go try to seek this stuff out. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. If you follow me on Instagram, you can find it in my stories. But anytime you go and mention anything about like cleaning up your lifestyle or doing something, there's always people who are one-uppers who do more than you do and want to let you know that. So I found out, here are the things that I found out.
Oh, you wrote them down?
After telling people that I'm going to be, reducing some of the finishes I'm going to use and trying to use more natural finishes and things that don't have the nasty chemicals in them. This all relates back to, it started with a thing where Nicole bought some pickles that don't have dye.
You're telling the story.
Not, I have to tell them why I'm about to mention the word pickles. So the whole pickle thing is what started this. So then I was told that basically eating too many pickles is going to give Mateo stomach cancer.
What?
That's pickled foods, and there's logic to this. It's so salty and so bitter that there are, if you have excessive amounts of this in your system, you can certainly end up with stomach problems. Of course, anything has to be in moderation, right?
Don't they say that about like burnt food? Like
I think barbecue.
Barbecue
is one of those things that can be carcinogenic, too much of it. But anyway, if we talk about it too much, it's not going to be funny.
Okay, sorry.
I also found out that since I'm not vegan, I probably shouldn't even bother with doing anything. Okay? And lastly...
You're vegan. Why bother?
Yeah, I'm not vegan, so why even bother trying to improve anything? And then also, the styrofoam cups are killing us.
Okay.
So that's why I'm drinking out of my Superman metal insulated mug. Okay, so that's really it. Now here's the thing, as far as the woodworking stuff goes, this is a real thing I'm going to try to implement over time, and that is reducing the amount of really nasty, volatile finishes that I have in my life. If we don't need them, I talked to Nicole, I'm like, how's this, what is it, the Maloof chair? That was finished with tried and true oil.
I love that finish.
See, and I don't absolutely love it. I do like a little bit of a film, a little bit of a sheen, and those oil finishes generally don't have that. But it's okay if it means that I can take some of these things out of my life that really don't need to be there, right? Yeah. So that's what this comes down to. It'll be an interesting thing to watch.
So if you're in the Denver area and you want some finishes.
Come get some finishes. Well, someone brought up a good point. They're like, what are you going to do with the old finishes? And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not just going to do this mass exodus, bring the dump over and let's just dump it all in. Right. You have to dispose of these things properly. But a good point is perhaps the more environmentally friendly thing to do is to actually use the rest of the finish. Yeah. Get them on furniture pieces instead of having it end up in some kind of a landfill or having to be processed.
You could take some of them with you to the meeting that
to
you're
my
doing.
Demo next week at the Denver Woodworkers Guild.
Marc, if you're in the Denver area, Marc's going to be speaking at Rockler on Tuesday.
I might be mumbling. I might just be...
At 7:30, the Colorado Woodworkers Association is hosting him, and he'll be talking about probably finishing.
I am. Actually, I will be talking about oil-based finishes and their resin content. I've got some cool little things to demonstrate there, so it'll be interesting.
If you are part of the Colorado Woodworkers Association, head over to Rockler and meet this Yahoo. And if you're not, it's only $30 a year to join.
I don't know why I haven't joined.
And that's a whole, why haven't you?
Because I'm busy.
Yeah, I know.
I'm doing Friday Live. I'm very busy, Nicole.
So
a lot of people have been asking me what good finishes are there? Like, what are the safe finishes that you might start to use a lot more often? So I've got 4 listed here. Vermont Natural Coatings is a great company with their Polyway finish. They have a lot of different varieties there, but just go look them up. It's really awesome stuff conceptually. I like it. It's a water-based poly, basically. Rubio Monocoat is certainly an option. Osmo Poly X is a good option. Those are both like hard wax oil mixtures. Again, not the most protective finish in the world, but I don't think my stuff really needs to be bulletproof. And then General Finishes Endurovar is something. I actually finished this thing with that, and Endurovar is one of the few water-based finishes that actually has something of a oil-like appearance once it's on the surface. So that's probably what I will miss if I move a lot toward water-based stuff.
I just want to pause and tell Ryan congratulations. He is currently at the hospital with his wife. She just delivered a baby girl 6 weeks early. So I totally...
We know what that's like.
I know what that's like. So
we did the 7-week NICU dance.
Both of mine were 7 weeks early. So I just wanted to say hi and congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations and good luck.
I also want to apologize. We had a super chat last time, and I totally missed it. And
you are a terrible person.
So hopefully he or she is watching. Vicum watches. Wanted to know, do you know how midway through a lot of woodworking projects you measure the diagonals to check for square? What do you do if it's not square? Doesn't the joiner determine how square it will be?
Not necessarily. If you're gluing something up that's square and all of your joinery is cut square, it does set the tone for a square project, but it really doesn't take much for something to be off and the whole cabinet, let's say if we're talking about a cabinet, to be at a square. So even if your joinery is self-squaring for the most part, you cannot trust it. Things move, right? So when you do a diagonal measurement, that's telling you how far off it is. And if you could figure out which side needs the pressure, actually, most of the time, all you have to do is apply some clamping pressure on the offending corner. So the one that's longer than the other, put a clamp across that diagonal and just squeeze it in a little bit, and that will actually square it up. And then usually you have to keep it clamped up, and while the glue dries, keep that clamp in place.
And we have a little gift here that we got it a couple weeks ago, and I forgot to do it last time.
Oh.
So this is from Alan and Judy.
Oh,
you want to open it?
Sure.
I saved it because it's such a nice.
It's pretty.
I know. Hi, Nicole and Mark.
Is this all natural?
It's.
Is this hemp?
No, I think it's the Raffi stuff.
I think if I expose myself to this, I might be in trouble.
So I finally got around to sending you this shirt my husband wanted to send. I hope you find it amusing. I have to have a sneaking suspicion that Ness has already sent you the same one. So if you have one of each. It's probably only appropriate for Friday Night Live.
Oh, maybe.
No, we don't have. It's blue too. You can wear it
perfect.
on the show.
Ready? I don't know what it is. Stinking freaking hot desert. So I guess this is an Australia map telling us the things that, you know what, inside jokes we won't understand.
Yeah. Just a little about us. As I mentioned in my email, Alan and I have been following you since the beginning of The Wood Whisperer, and I never miss Friday Live. Maybe one day we'll stay up late so we can watch you live. We find you both very easy to listen to, and especially Mark on instruction when doing a project.
Awesome.
Alan hasn't done any of your projects, but has learned a good deal of techniques and been inspired by the videos. He hasn't been able to do much woodworking, and over the years, when they invest 48 hours, he might have a half chance. Ha ha.
Nice.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Alan and Judy. That was very nice of you.
That's a fun shirt.
And it's dark, and I could wear it on the show. That's great. So are we ready for questions or anything else?
Well, I have other questions, but I'll integrate them into this.
And I don't have a ton of questions today.
Okay, perfect. This comes with one of the questions.
Yep, the corner joint one.
Yep, the corner joint.
Okay. Sounds bueno. Let's get into it. So Ben Lindis wrote in. Oh, I should mention that these questions, the pre-selected ones, are from our Patreon page. So patreon.com/woodwhisperer if you want to be a part of that and have a sort of preferential first in line sort of treatment for your questions. But we do get to other questions here as well. Ben Lindis said, in your recent gate video, you explained a little of the finishing process, also noting Matt's outdoor table. I was just wondering why the first 2 coats are gloss and then you knock down the sheen with the matte finish. Why not just use the matte from the start? This is a very, very common question. Generally speaking, in the world of finishing, you'll find the instructions are to build up your coats with gloss and then finish with matte. The reason is matte finishes contain flatteners. It's basically small particles that reflect the light, and they scatter the light in such a way that that's effectively what's happening when we look at it. It's scattering the light, and it gives it that sort of hazy appearance. So if you have too much of this on the surface, and think about it, 5-6 coats of matte, all of those flatteners in each one of those coats means you're building up a thickness of that material which obscures the grain that's laying underneath. So generally speaking,
that makes sense.
Yeah, you build up with gloss, which is perfect. Oh, Nicole, party foul.
It's not really a party, but okay.
It's Friday Live is always a party. Even though it's first thing in the morning. You build up the coats of gloss, now that's like optically clear. You could see through it, the grain shines through, and then you just hit it with the fewest amount needed to get that matte finish, right? So all you need is 1 or 2 layers on top to get the matte appearance, but you still have the clarity to see through it. Now, generally speaking, this isn't going to matter much if you're only doing like 2 to 3 coats of a wiping varnish. You could still do the gloss thing, but you don't have to. If you're doing something like I did on the gate, we're talking like 7 or 8 coats of finish, thick coats of finish. So if I did matte that entire time, you're not going to get the same results. Furthermore, the instructions, they tell you to do that. The folks at Epiphanes want you to build up coats of gloss and then use the matte as that final top coat. And if that affects the quality of the finish, I'm not sure, but that is what their recommendation is.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Very common question. Mike Davies says, hope it's okay to double dip, because I've got a question for Mark and then a question for you both. I'm thinking about scaling down a trestle table. This is the one I made for the kitchen with the wedge tenons. He wants to know if there's anything specific he should be mindful about when doing this, and to ensure A, that it doesn't look stupid, and B, that it's still structurally sound. So yes, when you scale something down, if you can, grab the SketchUp drawing, start scaling it down that way. And scale it down, shut up, camera. Scale it down proportionally, right? The problem is, though, once you get down to a certain size, sometimes if you just scale everything proportionally, it doesn't make sense anymore. You might be thinner than a typical material thickness. You might have a mortise and tenon joint that doesn't quite make as much sense in that smaller scale. So I do scale down proportionally, get it roughly where I need it to be, and then on a micro level, I look at the details and see, does something need to be scaled up, down, move something, so you'll generally see it, and that's what SketchUp's great for, to help you visualize that. So for both of us, he knows that we're fiction-based video game fans with movies and books. He'd also like to know.
Wearing a Borderlands shirt today.
There you go. What am I wearing? Look, Zelda.
Zelda.
I got Link on my shirt. Who would you like to be if you could be any fictional character for a day? Who would you like to be, and what would you do?
Is this
fictional
books?
character?
Oh, okay.
I'd like to be Aragon or Aragorn. Sorry, that's actually one that I would have picked too. But he wants to just hang out with his elven wife and around Rivendell and do nothing but relax in paradise. I don't know. Isn't he a king? He's got a job to do.
Yeah.
That would be nice. Also, I'd be a pretty big deal. So I'll go first because you have time to think about it. I would probably be, if you've ever read Invincible, it's a comic book series, Marc from Invincible is kind of like a Superman. He's super powerful, practically invulnerable. And he's a really good fighter. He's a good-looking guy, and he's got a pretty hot girlfriend, well, wife. Series is over now, and he's a Viltrumite, and they're pretty cool people.
Okay.
They're nasty people, but he's a good one because he's a half-breed. But he, kind of has Superman-like powers, but he's, not Superman.
On the spot, the first person that comes to mind, because you brought up Invincible, I started thinking comic books.
Right.
So I would like to be Snow White from Fables.
Oh, for Fables, okay.
Because she's a badass.
Yeah.
Yes.
I forget. I don't remember anything from Fables.
She was the mayor of Fabletown, and she...
Is she a big deal?
She's a big deal, and she gets to be with Big Bad Wolf.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I lost that series.
Yeah.
I think I read 30
Such
issues.
a good.
Okay.
And there's a video game called The Wolf Among Us. She's in that one too, and it's awesome.
Good deal. Thank you, Mike.
Fables.
Good question. Brian Lurch says, looking at building a few planter boxes. For the legs, I was looking to use a piece of 1x4 attached at a 45-degree face to the box, or 45-degree to the face of the box. Question is, how would you go about joining the rails to the leg? No domino in the budget anytime soon. And if you want to know what that is, we're talking something like this. So basically, what you have pictured here is what you have to do. He's got the rails so that they're all mitered, and they meet that vertical piece of the leg, so they meet the face. The only thing I could think to do that would be relatively easy is probably dowels. So if you can get those things located, you can actually use those little dowel insert pins. They're like markers. Pop them into the dowel. You should be able to drill the dowel fairly easily into your 45-degree mitered rail. And then you could put that little insert in there and push it into your leg, and that'll give you the 2 locations that you want to drill into the leg. Ultimately, it's kind of tricky because you're dealing with skinny parts, very small parts. They're all coming into a very sort of confined area, and it can be tricky. So honestly, you might even look into pocket screws. Pocket screws are very low profile, especially when you have a joint like this. You can kind of get them all clamped in place and then drive your screws in. That may be one of the best solutions for something like that. So, and then of course, if you use pocket screws, use a good, like Type-Bond 3, a good outdoor glue to serve as kind of that extra reinforcement to help the screws so they're not as stressed. Okay, Michael Pickens says, my 5-year-old daughter is very interested in what goes on in the shop. This Christmas, I plan on making a set of frames for my grandmother and my father and would like to include her in the process. I won't let her use a power tool, obviously. You should see what she can do with a butter knife, but would like to include her in something other than cleanup. Do you have any experience with including Mateo in the shops? Any tips on kid-friendly projects? I don't really have any tips on kid-friendly projects. Toys are always great, but I haven't done a lot of projects that I would just put into a category being kid-friendly. Even the smallest kid-focused project can still be dangerous depending on how you accomplish it. So I think if I'm going to incorporate Mateo into something in the shop, I'm probably going to make some fake pieces. Right? So if I need to build something, I would probably have all of the parts to build this thing pre-assembled, or not pre-assembled, pre-cut, and I would bring the kid in for the assembly. But before that, I would have pieces that would be mock pieces that they could then use a handsaw to cut, right? And if it doesn't turn out great, you can very quickly grab the good one and sub that in so that you can actually get this thing assembled. But you do want to bring them into the sawing portion, the drilling portion, things that they actually can do with your supervision and do safely. But I do like the idea of letting them cut some things, not with necessarily power tools, but letting them make some cuts, letting them understand what's going on with this. And again, even if you don't incorporate their stuff into the final project, they still get the experience, which is really cool, and the pride of being able to assemble it together. So I think that's my biggest tip is get everything pre-done and bring them in on the assembly.
Yeah. Did you talk about the grasshopper?
No.
That's a really great
That's
example
a good one.
of you did all the pieces and the kids just, I think it was still put together. They just painted it and they had a blast.
Yeah, we wound up putting it together.
Yeah.
Even the glue up was too complex for them at the time. But I mean, look at it this way. Kids will put together a Lego kit and feel like, the king of the world because they put it together. They feel like they made it. So even if they're not doing the cutting, just being part of the assembly is a very gratifying, positive experience.
Or even decoration.
Or even decorating, yeah, for sure. Thomas Lycan says, hi, Mark. That's actually not how he talks.
I'm going to say.
I'm guessing. Was wondering if you could outline your sanding process when working on a typical hardwood furniture project that will ultimately get a varnish finish. I don't know. I don't apply varnishes anymore.
No.
I know nothing about it. What grit do you start with? How do you know which grit to use as you progress up? And when is it okay to skip grits? Thanks for all you guys do for the woodworking community. So generally speaking, I never skip grits. Well, that's not true. I have grits that I use. I don't use the ones in between. So what I'm saying is I don't skip the ones that are in my regimen, right?
Kiss my grits.
Kiss my grits. But you absolutely need to pick certain grits with a certain amount of spacing to eventually get to your 180 or 220. So very briefly, and I kind of do this on every project, so go look at my project videos. A lot of times you'll see me talk about this. It may be brief, but we will talk about it. So generally speaking, off of my power tools, unless I come out of the drum sander, most of my blade power tools, I'm going to probably hit the surface with 80 grit. If I can use my drum sander, that usually has like 120 grit in it, and I will start with 120 grit with my random orbit sander when I'm done. You could save a lot of time on sandpaper and a lot of money on sandpaper and time as well if you use a card scraper. You could skip all those lower grits. So instead of taking it right out of the planer and hitting it with sanding, go ahead and hit it with a card scraper. And now you can actually jump up to like 150 or 180 on your first sanding sequence and then go up as high as you need to go. So let's just focus on sanding. I would start with 80, then I would probably jump to 120, and then I would jump to 180. In a lot of cases, hardwood furniture, you can usually stop at 180. The trick is to stop when you no longer see the visible scratches on the surface. For some woods and some people, that's 180. For others, they like to go to 220. So that's my regimen. I don't stock anything but these grits. It would be 80, 120, 180, and 220. And I also have some 320, but those are special cases. It's very, I guess if I were doing just like a oil finish, no varnish, I'd probably go to a higher grit because you're not really building a film on the surface, so you need to have as much smoothness as possible.
What about the piano finish?
Well, that's a whole different thing. In that case, you probably would want to go to 220 just to be safe because the surface would be nice and smooth. Then you're just building finish upon finish and then polishing the finish.
Gotcha.
Very high grit. Gotcha. So kind of a different thing. But that's how I would do it. Now, when we talk about skipping grits, let's see. So I said 80, 120, 180. Well, you're not using 150, right? So you technically are skipping that, but I don't see it as skipping because it's not even in my regimen. I just, I don't jump more than like 40 at a time, if that makes any sense. And that's what works for me. If you want to throw those in between grits in there, you can. What it'll mean is you'll have a whole extra set of, sanding discs in the shop, but you will probably lessen the time you'll be sanding with those grits, but you've added a whole extra one to the list, so you're not really saving any time, if that makes any sense.
I have a question from Ben.
Yeah, and I'm actually done here. So.
He says, is there any reason you couldn't use 4x4 material for the roubo build instead of 8x4? Am I saying that right? 8x4?
Let me see.
8.
Okay, I'm glad I read it. 4/4. Is there any reason you couldn't use 4/4 material for the roubo instead of 8x4s, as Nicole says? I have a line on some very cheap for this area, 4/4 oak in the 210 board foot range. I assume it'll be just tons of extra work. You're right, tons of extra work. Okay, what he's talking about is 8/4 is usually about 1 3/4 inches once it's planed, and you're building this lamination. And I've got my back slab here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces that are glued together. That's 8/4. If he's going to use 4/4, he's looking at roughly double that. That's a lot of boards to glue up and a lot of error that may accumulate so that once this whole thing's glued up, it could be twisted to all heck. So you do want to be careful. It can be done. People do it all the time, but it's going to be more work.
I have a super chat from Peter.
Super duper chat.
Valcanis. Hey, I think I did that. What is the difference between poly and PVA glues, and when would you opt for the poly?
Never. Honestly, polyurethane glue is one of the most hated materials in the woodworking world.
Yeah.
Almost universally.
Didn't we get
there are
an
exceptions.
email about the...
It was a company that specialized in poly glue that was looking for a sponsorship.
Like, hell no.
Yeah, I'm like, look, the money's nice, but I don't want to use it. Poly glue is, there are times where it makes more sense. Maybe you get more working time from it. Maybe it binds better to dissimilar materials. Maybe it binds better to oily materials. If you have a oily species, it might be good for that. So there are reasons to use it. I have never done anything in my shop with polyurethane glue. Primary reason is it's super messy. It foams up as it cures, right? So it makes this and it's not a structural foam, right?
Is it more of a crafting glue?
Any glue can be a crafting glue.
I guess.
But there are people who have a special scenario where it makes sense for them to use it. But I would say the vast majority of woodworkers doing your average projects have no need for polyurethane glue.
There you go. I got an email.
With coffee all over it?
With coffee all over it from Jeff Peters. Hi, Mark. I'm not normal.
No, I'm not. Welcome to the club.
On the normal social media sites, but I have a very important question. You get asked, who are your biggest furniture or design influences? But here's the most important question. You ready for this?
Oh, I'm ready.
Who are your biggest drumming influences? I was a bass player for years, so I lock in on the right foot, and my top 3 are Nick Menza from Megadeth, Ray Ludzer from Korn, and Scott Rockenfield from Queensryche. They are all monsters, and they don't do double kick through everything. Thanks, Jeff.
They don't just double kick through everything.
Yeah.
That's what I do. My top 3. Let me just rattle some off that have been influences over time. Do you know some? You've probably heard me talk about them.
You're going to say the guy from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Chad Smith. Here's the thing with Chad Smith. He's not technically that great of a drummer, but he has a he just has a sense of timing and a sense of locking in with the bass, which is really a drummer's ultimate job, is to be the other side of the bass, right? And between him and Flea, the two of them are just in the pocket every single time.
Right.
So he's like just a backyard garage drum sort of self-taught funk master. So I like him for those reasons, but he's not technically that good.
Guess the drummer from Rush.
Yes.
I know
Neil
him.
Peart.
Yeah, Neil Peart.
Fantastic.
I was gonna say Daryl Peart.
That's Daryl Peart. Which is why for years I pronounced Daryl Peart's name as Peart. But Neil Peart is, a lot of people don't like him, but he is one of the most technically, like the other side of Chad Smith, technically insane drummers out there. Love the guy. I really like Carter Beauford. He's the drummer for Dave Matthews Band, but he's also a just incredible like jazz drummer.
Yeah.
And he's at a level that I could only dream to be. I would say those three. And you gotta love, the classics. I love watching those old black and white videos with like Sammy Davis Jr. doing a show and he's got Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich doing a drum off, some kind of a drum battle. And then also the, what is it? The Chad Smith.
You hit a nerve, Jeff.
No. Chad Smith and Will Ferrell.
Oh, yes. That was great. You have the t-shirt.
I have the t-shirt from their drum battle. If you haven't seen that, that's friggin' hilarious. Yeah. Okay, enough about drumming.
It was on Jimmy Fallon, I think it was, where they did it.
That was a good question, though.
I have some questions. Oh, so last week we gave the free Project Friday to...
who's the drummer from Avenged Sevenfold?
I don't know.
Reverend something or other.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
So Doug, we gave the project to Doug and he wrote us, and he's in South Carolina, and they just wanted to say thank you. Him and his wife, Heather, watch.
Oh, nice.
And they are new parents.
Doug and Heather.
We both enjoy the information and entertainment you provide through your YouTube channels and podcasts. After reading a book to our 14-month-old daughter each night, we watch woodworking videos until she falls asleep. Heather says we definitely have a little lady woodworker in the making.
It's so cute.
Hetty Rose gets so excited anytime we take her to Home Depot or Lowe's. This is their daughter.
Oh my gosh.
So I had to print it out. She's adorable.
Oh my gosh, and she's got my book in her hand too.
Yes.
Look at that little cutie.
So if you could probably put her to sleep with that.
Yeah, just read to her from Hybrid
Just read to her
Woodworking.
like that.
The Case for Power Tools.
And they picked the green and green blanket chest.
Oh, cool.
You'll love that.
That's awesome. I love to see that.
That's one of my favorite.
My
We have
kids,
it in the
my kids don't even like to watch this stuff. I read to Mateo on the iPad, read him some comics every night. Sat down last night to read a comic book, and the YouTube app was open, and it's on my channel just because I was checking things. And he goes, "Dad, not a wood whisperer video." Like, dude, chill. I wasn't even like, I'm going to sit here and force you to watch my stuff. Got to get the views, baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I've pulled a few questions here.
Good, because we got 6 minutes.
Oh, geez. Mark Nyland, didn't have time to enter on Patreon. How do you fill gaps in large finger joints?
I make my fingers larger. I mean, seriously, if the gaps are bad enough that I'm at a point where I'm looking to fill them, they might look bad if they're filled, no matter what you do. So I sometimes do a do-over. Now, if that's not a possibility for you, typically the gaps in finger joints are fairly uniform and consistent. So whatever you're gonna do, you gotta make it so that it looks right. So a lot of times you could just fill it with wood. And a finger joint is a little bit easier because unlike a dovetail joint where you're at an angle, if you are using a finger joint and you drive some wood, just a very thin sliver of wedged shaped wood, you could drive that in there, usually in the right orientation, and it actually looks passable as a fix because the grain's going the right way. With a dovetail, that gets a little bit trickier to do because your dovetail angles are cut this way and you're shoving in a straight cut piece of material, so your grain is running this way on your filler piece, but this way on your dovetail. Doesn't really match up as well. So if they're big enough to fill with wood, fill it with wood. That is your best repair. And worst case scenario, filler. Timbermate wood filler is a water-based product. And I'm really all about water-based products, Nicole.
Yeah, I know.
It's very good for the environment, and it also is better than drinking out of styrofoam every day.
Sam B. Says, hey, Mark and Nicole, I thought I would leave the wounds to heal from the chair build, but how did you find building multiples of something?
I'm having flashbacks now.
I'm making plaques for my military unit, and they are asking for 20 of them.
Yikes.
And Nicole, how's the scrolling coming along? And did you manage to check out the scroll saw scribbler? No, I haven't. Yes, I asked to see if you can say his name again.
Okay.
Oh, I haven't had a chance to do anything.
I bought Nicole a mobile base for her scroll saw,
it just
which
came in yesterday, right?
she has yet to.
It came in yesterday.
Look, you're a slacker. The last question about the scroll saw scribbler. That guy
is awesome.
Is flipping amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I do follow him on Instagram now. Not only is he amazing, but the stuff he makes is totally our style. He's got like Fallout 4 things. And I want to look into his technique because I don't know, it's like a combination of marquetry and intarsia, but he's basically making multi-layered with multi-species, making pictures with layers of these things. And it's not like,
maybe I could commission him to do something for
I already thought about asking him to commission something for you for Christmas.
Aww.
But the guy's stuff is amazing, and it's done in such a way, like the quality level is like it was laser cut. It does not look like someone is capable of making that on the scroll saw. So if you guys don't follow this dude, Scroll Saw Scribbler, on Instagram, you need to.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing.
That's awesome.
What was his other part of his question?
How she.
Oh, it was a she.
Yeah.
The dining room chair.
Yeah. How you felt about building multiples.
Building multiple plaques, fine. Multiple chairs, probably not ever again. Like that kind of sucked. But you do what you got to do. Plaques shouldn't be too bad because you're probably going to have a template and you'll be able to just batch through them, throw some headphones on, listen to an episode of Wood Talk. It should be fine. But the batching process is definitely something that drains you. It can be a pain in the butt.
Right?
It's very tedious. And I know Scott Saganti, our buddy from Arizona. I could have sworn I saw on his page multiple times. He's making multiple rockers.
Oh, geez.
Like Maloof influenced rockers.
Wow.
I'm like, dude, you're nuts.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, it's such a time-consuming project. So, yeah, all the power to people who are good at batching out, and you like doing that. But I find it very rough. But I think you'll be fine. You'll be fine with 20 plaques. That shouldn't be too difficult.
John Howard says, what? No,
Zip it up.
To do a raw wood look for a picture frame, would you literally leave it unsanded and unfinished, or can you bring the fuzzy look back and apply the finish to the project, but look like there's no finish?
If you want a project to look like there's no finish, go water-based. And there are different ways that you can do this, different finishes out there that add different amounts of color. But most of them, one of the reasons why people don't like using the finish is because it doesn't bring much life to it. For instance, you look at this maple. The reason this has this sort of orangey, brownish color is because of the oil-based finish that was applied to it. If you apply a water-based finish to it, it doesn't do that. It stays more of the natural, dry, pale look. So that oil and lacquer, those things will bring those colors to the wood and make it look finished. So if you wanted to just provide a little bit of protection without bringing color, a water-based finish and just a couple of coats is probably a good way to do that.
And I'm sorry, Sam. Sam's a man.
See? I know.
I saw the woman. He has a
Yeah, he's got a woman. So he must be a woman.
It's a woman and a man in it. Kind of like
Here,
me and you.
Scroll through. The guy's name, by the way, is Justin Christensen. Scroll through his Instagram feed and make sure your socks are on when you're done.
I'll ask you a D Alliance one wants to know if you were able to make a wooden Dalliance wooden toilet seat, what would be your ideal wood choice for it to be?
Not wangy.
An ideal finish, a wooden toilet seat.
Look, why are we making a wooden toilet seat?
I don't know. You probably buy one for like $5.
Do you remember there was
$10?
a time where I thought about doing it? We needed a new toilet seat, and I was like, it'd be kind of funny to make a toilet seat on the show, but I never did it.
Well, go ahead. You should try to make the one that we have, like the kid layered one.
Yeah.
That would be kind of cool.
I would recommend making something that isn't likely to splinter. That's why I made the joke about wenge. Wenge is a very splintery wood, so unless you want splinters in your butt, I wouldn't use that. Use something that's treat it. This is disgusting. Treat the toilet bowl like it's a cutting board. Okay, so don't do anything in your toilet seat that you wouldn't do on a cutting board. So you want something that's closed grain, something that you can seal well so that it doesn't absorb schmutz. Unlike a cutting board, where you could probably finish it with like a mineral oil and wax, which will still absorb liquids, you probably don't want any liquid absorption whatsoever on your toilet seat. So you would probably have to finish it like you would finish an outdoor project with many layers of a polyurethane. But honestly, I would probably advise against it unless it's like a guest bathroom that you just never use. Because the constant cleaning, and guess what? I clean my toilet with fairly harsh chemicals.
Yeah.
Right? And then you're going to have to clean your seat with those chemicals as well. And you're asking a lot of a wood finish to be able to deal with that. So that's probably not the answer you were looking for. Amazing, right?
Yeah, he has a little boy too.
Yep, amazing. We're going to talk, Mr. Justin Scribbler, because I need you to do some stuff.
Any chance that one future guild project would be inspired by, I don't know who that is, so
Roentgen? No! What? Have you seen the stuff that I build? Do I look like someone who could accomplish a Roentgen level piece of furniture?
I'm gonna have to Google it now.
No, you know what? You can. The Roentgen stuff is what you see showing up on Facebook pages of your friends and family who aren't woodworkers. It's like you push this button, like National Treasure type thing. You push this button, this thing opens. Then this goes this way, and this opens. It's like a Rubik's Cube furniture piece.
Right.
And it's amazing. It's super high level. But the amount of engineering that goes into it is insane. I had to put one hidden drawer in the jewelry box project we just started in the guild, and it took me about a week to figure out how to lift up a panel and pull out a drawer, right? And there's no locking mechanisms, there's no springs. So honestly, I'm being funny with this, but my brain doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And it is probably never going to happen.
I barely got him to do the hidden compartment in the jewelry box.
I don't want to blow smoke and be dishonest about it, but yeah, it will never happen. I might maybe someday get a little more interested in hidden compartments, maybe do something a little more clever, but it's going to be like one little thing that goes boop, pops out, and like, hey, look, it's a drawer. No, well, I will never do something Roentgen level.
John Fox wants to know, how does a card scraper handle end grain?
Not terribly. I mean, a lot of times with end grain, your grain's going up, right? So you're kind of just scraping off the top. Now, scrapers actually are pretty good if they're nice and sharp. They're pretty good about creating shavings. As you know, using a plane on the face of a board versus the end grain's more difficult to work, and it's more difficult to get a nice shaving because, again, vertical pieces of, think of it like a bunch of straws and you're just cleaving off the top. So it tends to fray a lot easier. So, it's even more so with a card scraper. So yeah, you can absolutely scrape end grain with a good sharp card scraper, but you're going to make a lot of dust. It's not going to operate quite the same way that you would see it on a face grain or a side grain of a board.
So Aaron Chinawat said you could bring Andy in as a third guild content producer and have some crazy mechanical stuff going on.
Yeah, I wonder if Andy would be into that.
Yeah.
Andy's got that engineering mind. He could probably figure out some cool stuff like that. It would that would be the only way to do it, is if we found someone who was into it and we could go and highlight them.
Yeah.
So for instance, I probably shouldn't say too much about it because nothing has been agreed upon. I got a call with, speaking of Daryl Peart, I got a call with him this afternoon to discuss the possibility of bringing one of his beautiful pieces that he does into the guild for 2018.
That'd be awesome. Ken Bosner says, I have some of the worst chisels in the world.
Oh my God.
They seem to get dull just looking at them. What chisels would you recommend for a budget if the sky and if the sky was the limit?
Well, I love Japanese chisels for the sky's the limit, and my goodness, you start to look into, like, my chisels cost about anywhere from $50 to $80 a piece. Okay, and I've got the ones with multiple hollows in the back, which tend to get more expensive. But I love them, and they're awesome, but boy, do they get expensive. And mine, in terms of like good quality Japanese chisels, mine are entry level, good quality. Okay, there's stuff that will blow your mind and your budget. So that's where I would probably go because I think they're amazing and it would be just for fun.
That's sky's the limit.
That's if the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are more, more cost-effective ways to get the same stuff. But to me, it's just for fun. Really, a sky's the limit sort of chisel. You might look at like Blue Spruce and Lee Nielsen. They all, even Veritas has some good chisels as well. These are companies who you don't need to go that crazy to get a really good quality chisel.
What about budget?
Now, budget friendly. Marples used to be the go-to, but since they don't make them, it's not Sheffield steel anymore. They're not as good. But these Narex have been serving me pretty well so far.
You got those from Taylor Toolwork.
Tay-Tools.
Taytools.com.
Yeah. So Narex has been doing pretty well for me as a decent budget-friendly option.
Yeah.
But again, it depends on what your budget is.
A lot of people in the chat room said Narex.
Narex is doing really well. I think we could take one more question.
I have a couple super chats.
Super duper chat.
I'll give you a quick question though. Curve in the chat room said, when using wood glues like Type Bond, how long should you wait before continuing to work on a piece?
Well, how long you wait depends on your conditions, right? These water-based glues are going to cure and set up at different times depending on how humid it is, what the temperature is, and sometimes even what the wood species in the project is. Generally, look at the bottle. They tell you how long to wait before you can stress the joint. You can take them out of the clamps a lot sooner, but you probably shouldn't do much with them for sometimes 12 to 24 hours, right? In Arizona,
you could do it.
I would take them out of the clamps within a half hour and they'd be fine. And then I would be able to work them within an hour. And I wouldn't stress them too much. I'm not smacking them against the wall, but it really depends on your situation, where you are. The more humid it is, the lower the temperature, the longer you have to wait. But ultimately, you want to keep everything in the clamps for a couple of hours at least, and then before you really stress the joints, give it an overnight to be safe.
Brian Lurch says, somebody has to buy you a coffee today. That's from a super chat.
Oh, nice. Well, thanks for the coffee.
Brian. Darth D. Webb says, cutting mortises with a new upcut spiral bit and edge guide with shortcuts and proper direction. I'm still getting chatter. What am I doing wrong?
I would need to see what you're doing. I can't tell you what you're doing wrong unless I see it. Your setup, the router you're using, there always could be something where your bit maybe isn't concentric. Who knows? There's so many variables that if I can't see you do it, it's difficult for me to say what the problem is.
Benjamin.
You could be going in the wrong direction.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know.
Ben says.
He says proper direction. But if you're going in the wrong direction, you're doing it because you don't know that you're going in the wrong direction. So if you would think you're going in the proper direction, but I don't know. I need to see it.
Ben says, Nicole clearly needs more coffee to identify poor Sam easier. Also, $5 might make Mateo a single Lego piece.
Lego is expensive, huh?
Crazy.
What's the deal? We got one of those resale Lego shops opening up.
It hasn't opened yet, though.
And I'm looking forward to that because you could probably save a lot of money by getting used kits.
Yeah.
What else we got?
I think that's all that's all the super chats.
Wonderful.
And
in the jewelry box video series,
Patreon people?
Not yet. In the jewelry box series, just started in the guild, by the way, and it's still part of the bundle. So if you want to get the early bird bundle, all 4 projects are 50% off. So I open up your jewelry box.
This is
live on camera.
So Mark made this part right here with David Marks.
Yeah.
And then
they were like practice pieces for the class.
In fact, you can see where he did his practice piece right here on the other side.
Yeah, well, I wanted to incorporate and sort of like commemorate that class, but build something great for you. So there was a lot of rules broken with how this was done, but ultimately I made this for Nicole. So in the video, I'm showing some of the early predecessors to the jewelry box we're about to make, and I pull a drawer open, and there's this like lacy pink thing in there, and I'm filming this as it's happening, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I realize it's just a ribbon.
Yeah. It was a ribbon on a box of a gift, and I liked it so much that for whatever reason I decided to save it.
But meanwhile, I think it's underwear, and I'm pulling it out and going, I've never seen Nicole with hot pink underwear, but I imagine it's quite nice. But it could have been a very embarrassing moment. And then I found her secret stash of World of Warcraft cards.
Yeah, where are those at?
They're in the other one.
Oh, yeah.
World of Warcraft trading card game.
I went through a chunky jewelry phase. I don't know. You know what?
Oh, no, I'm still in that phase, baby.
That's when we went to Hawaii. That was yours.
These are chunky.
Yeah, no.
These are man's beads right here.
Mateo made me this.
It's very nice. Okay, let's not look at jewelry. So if you're interested in this, early bird bundle is still there on the guild site. Definitely check that out.
He's not making this one.
No, it's better than this one.
It's better than this one.
It's gonna be awesome. And we do want to thank Ian Enderby for helping us out on Patreon. I was just thinking, this is the first year we're doing Patreon this time of year, right?
Yeah.
Christmas is coming.
Yeah.
Holiday season is on its way.
Right.
People are not spending money,
Sure.
so that's why I was just trying to think, are we doing something wrong that our Patreon donations have gone down? No, it's that time of year. I would actually prefer people be, spending money on their friends and family than spending it on our Patreon campaign.
Oh, love note from Marc.
Ooh, did I sign it with a heart?
No,
all my eyes are dotted with hearts.
There's no date on it. I wonder when you wrote these.
I have no idea.
But I stacked them away.
Let's not read them live here. Okay, wait, what did that one say? Let's read that one.
No.
Now you're going to get embarrassed, aren't you?
You wrote it, not me.
Yeah, but a guy saying those things is pretty much par for the course. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching,
That's
everybody.
a nice bow on it.
Yeah, a nice pink underwear ribbon on it. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we will catch you next week.
Bye.
Peace out.